Hi, everybody. Welcome to Under the Dome here with the City of Pearl. I'm Teresa Abel, the Public Information Director. And today we're excited to have Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann here with us. Lieutenant Governor, it's so much fun to do this. And of course, Senator Kirby is with us too. He's our regular, and we enjoy having him here as well. But it's so fun to come in here and just talk about these things that happen during the session, the things that are affecting the state, and kind of what you guys have to do with those changes.
Good.
So let's talk about the session. I realize we're several weeks out now. Thank goodness, right?
Thank goodness.
Yeah. And I know y'all had some real hot button topics this year.
We did.
The first one, of course, we'll just jump right in. PERS. Big deal. A lot of misunderstanding out in the public during this time, and a lot of wrangling and kind of back and forth about it. Tell us, in your words, walk us from the beginning of this discussion this year to what the resolution was.
How many hours do you have here? I'll give you the shortened version. A couple of years ago, we were informed in the legislature that we were about 90% funded in PERS, and they go out 25 years. So they say, in 25 years, in 2047, so I guess that's 22, 2047 we'll be, 80 or 90% funded. So we weren't on the alert based on that. Then in October, we got the first indication that no, not really. And we were told that we were 56% funded. Now this is in a span of months. So we're like, what happened? Now, when you talk about being funded, that's pretty important because there's $31 billion there, maybe $32 billion, depending on how much interest we've had lately. But so it's a massive amount of money, and to say that we're short $25 billion means it's almost half full, which it was, 56%. So we had hearings in October, and the House particularly grilled the gentleman that runs it, Mr. Higgins, and about what was going on and why did this occur and whatnot. We were told that they had lowered the interest assumptions from 8 to 7.5 to 7. And those of you who have a home mortgage or whatever, a 1% interest makes a lot of difference, particularly if it's compounded over 25 years. So then in January, I think January 25th, we got a letter from them saying that they wanted to decrease the vesting schedule. Vesting is 8 years with the state. It's pretty aggressive, it's very nice. And so if you stay 8 years, you become 100% vested. And they wanted to lower it to 40%, which would, to 4 years, which would increase the cost by $40 million. Now this is, Teresa, right after they told us they were short $25 billion. So that raised a whole lot of other discussions, and in that they indicated they had lowered the interest rate down to 7%, and there were a number of different things in that correspondence about that, and that alerted the legislature further. And I think the House and the Senate, and I think everyone involved in a private industry, we'd have fired everybody. If you work for ABC Rental down the street down here, and you were off that much, everybody had been fired. And so the first inclination always is to fire all the board, to start over, what happened. So we had hearings, true to the legislature, we took time, we had hearings, and in those hearings, the head of the board, they're all elected, except for the state treasurer is on there, and the governor gets an appointment, who is head of Department of Revenue. So we had hearings, and we listened to the 3 board members came and testified before the Senate hearings. And in those hearings, it became apparent to me that we had a number of issues with PERS. First of all, I don't think their numbers are correct, and we had other actuaries looking at the numbers, and those numbers that were being furnished were not accurate, we didn't think. Second, we looked at the rate of return was 6.22, I believe, over the last 10 or 15 years. I can't remember right now, but it was actually less than the 7% assumption, which means that you're really worse off than you thought you were. And so we were concerned about both of those. And then during the testimony, the president of the board said that they were paying $100 million a year for investment advice. That also alerted the state. So with all of that coming on, we passed a law. The board had requested that we increased by 2%, 2% and 1%, I think up to 5% over the next 3 years. And then said that they were going to increase it another 5% contributions from Pearl High School and the education community and the teachers and the workers and counties and cities and of course employees of the state. A 10% raise would mean that you went from 17.4% to 27.4% for us, for the states and schools and counties and cities, plus 9% that we're putting in, that Dean and I put in. So we were going to be covering 36% for just our retirement. And of that, only about 11% was actually going to fund Dean's retirement and my retirement. The rest of it was to pay the liability off. So the legislature balked at that, and we said we will go up 1% for the next 5 years, and then we want to look at everything, which is what we're in the process of doing. And actually today I'll be meeting with some of the people about the PERS community. When the Democrats controlled this, they put in a retirement benefit, which is right. State employees historically didn't work for the same amount of money as others. So they had a very good retirement benefit. Then in around 2000, they also put in a 3% cost, not a cost of living, just a 3% bonus to your retirement plan, compounded. That's the key word here. So 25 years later, it's compounded out to we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on what's called the 13th check. Now, that's an obligation of the state that's 25 years old, and I have no intention of changing it. I mean, the retirees need to be paid. That's why they worked here. That was the law, and we need to live by it. The people who are working here now, you know, they came on, they may have taken this job versus another job, and we have an obligation as state to pay that. So I think over the summer, you'll see the legislature looking at another way to fund this, not the current retirement benefit or the people working there, but a new 5th tier is what they're calling it, which they've changed it 3 or 4 different times now. I guess it's the 5th one. So this 5th tier will have to come out with, hopefully, that it'll balance, and we won't continue to go deeper in the hole with $25 billion. I think we need to look at the actuarial numbers that are being funded to us. Over a period of years, they were inaccurate 11 out of 15 years, short. So we're not sure exactly where we are on that. And then I think the board needs to take a clear look at what the rate of return is. And if they would get back to a 7.5 or an 8% rate of return, it would go down by about $7 billion in liability just by having those steps taken. So I think the board has to look at the rate of return. We want to look at the 5th tier, and then we're putting more money. We put in another $110 million this year from the legislature to start filling that hole. And we'll find out how much that's going to be. And the one thing you had mentioned before we came, the principal of North Pike High School, a wonderful person, is on the board, elected to the board. And he was quite clear, he voted for this increase. He said he thought he owed it to the people who were working here today, his teachers and whatnot, and of course the retirees, that they put more money in here. And so during the question they asked him, you know, so what does this mean to North Pike? How are you going to make up this difference, and how much does it mean? And he said, well, it's $750,000 a year to my school, and I'm going to have to lay off teachers. Now, we just got our report. We're 30th in the nation now in our test scores from way, way, way long ago. In the last 4 or 5 years, we have gone up at least 10 points, and I am so proud of our kids and our parents and our teachers. We're not where we need to be yet. Our reading scores aren't what they need to be yet, but we're going in the right direction, and we're going quickly. So the money that we have spent, $100 million last year on teachers and $200 million more, $238 million more this year, is really important to keeping that momentum to where we have one of the top classes. That's the future of Mississippi. But to say we're going to have to cut back on our teachers because of this is an absolute red flag to the members of the legislature, the House and the Senate for that matter. So we got to figure a way out of this. We need a better rate of return. We need better numbers. We're going to have to come up with a fifth tier that actually works. All of those, I think, will come through this next session. And you know, the bumpers are, we got to pay the retirees what we owe them, and we got to pay the current employees what they owe them. And now that we got that set aside, how are we going to fix this? So I'm anxious to work. We'll be meeting with the board. We'll meet with their executive people. We'll meet with actuaries. I think you'll see some hearings and whatnot. But in the end, we've got an obligation. We got to fund that. And $110 million is a huge amount of money where I come from in Warren County. But that's not going to be enough. In addition to these increases, you know, we're already talking about increases. Like typically in your 401k for a company, it would be 6%. You know, we're going to be at 26%. So I can't pay you the same amount, you know, so we can't hire people because some cities have already started this where they're leasing out. So they're getting a leased employee and it's cheaper than it is having your employee and paying their health insurance and this big, huge retirement plan and a 9% from you. And by the time you add all that, it's cheaper. We can lease it out and still come out better, and the employee comes out, you know, with the retirement, the normal retirement plan and health insurance. So we got to be so careful here that we don't defeat the ability to have good people come to work for the cities and the counties and education and everyone else.
Absolutely.
It's a long discussion, and I apologize, but it's a complicated topic.
No, and I think one thing that really stuck with me in the conversations that I've had with Senator Kirby and Representative Newman is that it was important to work with the board and install some people who maybe do finance things better, that are maybe actuaries or accountants or things, that kind of thing. Where are we in that process?
I'm hopeful that the board will do that. We did not take any members off the board. That was considered by the House and the Senate. We did not take them off while we do these actuarial studies and do some of the others. The board members are some retirees, some municipal employees and whatever. They're all very good people, but I'll speak for myself, but I don't think I would be competent to run $30-something billion either. I don't know about Dean. Maybe Dean would be.
No.
But I think we certainly, that is one area. To have 1% more return would make a huge difference over a 25-year period. So I expect we'll have some discussions about that with the board, but they really need to pick that. The legislature needs to pick the new retirement plan because that's in statute. So it's got to come from the legislature. It can't come from the board. So the board won't do that. And then we need to get our numbers right. So we'll hopefully make progress on all of those. I will tell you, and everybody needs to be prepared, the amount of this liability is going to reduce the amount of money that we can give for roads and bridges and teachers and mental health and child protective services and whatever. I mean, the amount of money spent on that will be less than you can spend on other matters. So I'm hopeful that amount of money won't be great, but we'll find out when we get the new actuarial numbers.
Sure. That's a big project. That's a lot to think about.
I know. It's prayer is probably the first place to start, but after that we're going to have to crunch a lot of numbers, and I'm real hopeful. I actually drafted some retirement plans back when I was working in the private sector, so I have some knowledge about this, but it's a very difficult thing. Our whole state, we collect $7 billion a year, a little over that, and to have a $25 billion shortfall is, even for us, I mean, we're big, but we're not that big.
That's crisis level.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, well, and that's just one of the topics that you guys, seems like that could
run
take
out
the
of
whole,
time.
the whole 125 days.
As you can see, that not just the Lieutenant Governor, but the Senate and the House, I'm sure as well, we take this job very seriously.
Absolutely.
We feel like the current employees and the retirees are under a contract. A lot of those people could have had other jobs, making more money, but we have a good retirement program. We want to make sure it stays sound, and we want to make sure that we keep our end of the bargain as to what those people will receive. every year since I've been there, it's always a rumor about the retirement, and we're going to take away the 13th check, and we're going to do, and all that. I don't know who starts those rumors every year, but they're really good at it, whoever starts them.
It's got to be the opposition.
Yeah, but I can tell you there's no intention ever of us that I'm aware of, and I'm sure the Lieutenant Governor's aware of breaking our end of the bargain. That we're going to make sure those people get what they deserve, and they've earned it, and we're going to make sure that they receive it. So the Tier 5 the Lieutenant Governor's talking about, but I don't know what that'll be for new employees. That's beyond my pay grade.
Waiting to be built.
It is, and I hope it'll come this next year, and so we can start the process of easing. Obviously we're going to have to continue these contributions and whatnot for a long period. A near horizon for us would be 10 to 12 years. A longer horizon where we'd have to supplement would be 25 years.
Sure. Wow. Well, on top of that, which was, like we mentioned, momentous, you also had the Medicaid debate.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that was another one that there was all kinds of confusion, all kinds of discussion about, are you guys trying to keep us from being able to go to the doctor? Are you trying to help the wrong people? But in the end, y'all had a very specific vision.
We did. On our side, we wanted to help the people who were working. And those are people who are holding a job and are receiving a paycheck and don't have access to insurance. And there's a lot of companies anymore, because health insurance got real expensive. They don't provide it for everybody. So at certain levels, children are provided coverage, but at certain levels up to about $31,000, we wanted to have our working people have access. And the way the Senate came up with that was we put a fee on managed care organizations who have done quite well in this process. So we put a fee on managed care that would have paid for the health insurance for these working people, and like a family, mom and a couple of kids and whatnot, making $25,000 or $30,000 a year, would have health insurance. The first bill out of the House was that we totally expand Medicaid. Now, most states have done that. Most states have totally expanded Medicaid. Mississippi and about 9 or 10 others have decided not to do that at this point. Louisiana has, for example, and I spoke with the head of Louisiana's healthcare, who happens to be a doctor, and he indicated that they had applied to the federal government for a work requirement. So did Arkansas. When I talked to them, they have applied for a work requirement. They did the expansion, now they want the work requirement. Georgia has a work requirement that was approved. Actually, President Trump approved about 13 or 14 work requirements for Medicaid. And so it was kind of the Trump plan, and of course when President Biden came in, he threw all those out. Georgia sued and won, so they kept theirs. So I know our surrounding states are looking at a work requirement, and I think that's very appropriate for us to be looking at. We're not trying to ignore anybody's health. Obviously all the children are covered already, but we have a 53% labor force participation rate. That's the lowest in the country. We have jobs everywhere. I mean, if you got on the phone this morning, you could get a job just about anywhere, and no minimum wage anymore, and not anybody making $8 or $10 hardly. So there are opportunities for people, and we wanted to reward people to get out and work and do the things that like you and I do all day long. So that's the Senate position, was the Senate's position throughout. There were some back and forth, and they had some public hearings back and forth. And at the last 5 minutes or so, one of the Democrats came up to me on the Senate floor and said, well, why don't we just put this on the ballot? And I thought, we haven't reached an agreement. Are you going to put on the ballot work requirement? Yes. Work requirement? No. Medicaid expansion? Yes. I mean, it's very complicated, and we weren't able to reach an agreement, so I didn't think that was the appropriate way to do that. So we'll go back this year. We'll have discussions going into next year. Be discussion with our leadership team about going back with a work requirement. Of course, if President Trump, hopefully, if he gets hired by the nation, which he is right now, then we've got a shoe in on our work requirement. And I recommend, since there won't be any taxpayer dollars involved in that, they'll be paid for out of these managed care organizations. I think we do that right off. And that's about 74,000 people will pick up coverage. The full, it's hard to tell how many are if you just expanded it forever, let everybody in. I don't know how many that number would be. Certainly, the estimates are between 225 and 275,000. Nobody really knows, I don't think. But we can get working people health insurance, and I want everybody to think, well, gee, if I go to work, I can also get health insurance. So I'm very hopeful about that. We'll be discussing that during the year and bring it back up after November. If President Trump is elected, then obviously we would be successful on our work requirement, and I think we ought to implement that immediately, get our working people health care, and then we can see how all of that works out. Does it raise our labor force participation rate? How does this help? There's some catastrophic things that are always bothersome, for people, just because we're all, of the Christian faith, and most of us are, and you worry about somebody being down and out and not having a job and having some critical thing happen to them in life. So there are some concerns that are bothersome, I think, to everybody in the Senate and the House too. But the first step, I think, is to make sure that we can pay for and we give working people their insurance and incentivize people to go to work.
Sure. Well, and I know that when it came down to 0 hour, you guys almost had this ready to go. And then what happened that kept it from going through?
Well, the first thing, on the House side, the Democrats said they wouldn't vote for it unless it's full expansion. So that didn't kill it completely, because they're in a minority, which you still have to have a positive vote, majority vote, supermajority vote. But but that hurt a lot. And then there are conservative Republicans that didn't want it either, on the House side and on the Senate side. So I don't think there was sufficient votes to do a full expansion. Now, I don't think you blame anybody for that, my Republicans or my Democrats or whatever. I don't think you blame anybody for that. That was a decision made at that point in time, and we'll bring it back up and we'll see if there's another decision. But clearly, there was erosion on the House side and erosion on the Senate side. We might have been able to get it out of the Senate, and we never voted, so I'm not really sure. It was close. I was still working on trying to get it out of the Senate. But at the time, I don't think we had enough to override the governor's veto, so we'd have been in another fight. And when he overrode it, I don't know that we would have had sufficient votes in either chamber to override his veto. He's been very specific. He doesn't want to do this, work requirement or not. So, and he had senators in over there discussing with him, putting his point of view, which is his legitimate right. So we'll see if President Trump gets in, and President Trump's group, his organization, would approve this, and we'll go back and look again.
Good deal. Well, and what some viewers don't know, or probably all the viewers don't know, is that we've actually had this conversation before, but we had some catastrophic technical difficulties, so we're back.
It happens.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on, when we were here before, I called them the happy things. You were talking about some things that y'all did that maybe we didn't know about, because we weren't hearing about a lot of the good stuff in the media. Y'all gave some money to the state parks to really upgrade, and I think for nature lovers like me, that's a big deal.
Well, we've done 2 or 3 things. When I was Secretary of State, we bought Cat Island. You own it now. Everybody out here owns it.
Yes.
We bought Cat Island. We have our own island right now. We did it with some federal bond funds that were left over from Katrina and a little bit of state money. Then we bought 17,000 acres of bottomland hardwood in Warren County that just is irreplaceable there, where the Yazoo River hits south just before it gets into the Mississippi River. A whole big block that's now a public domain. And then I started looking at the parks, and I saw they were in poor shape. I was better than I thought I was because I sent architects out to every park, and I asked them to come back with what was wrong with the parks. because during this period of COVID, everybody was driving past all our parks to go to Alabama and to go to wherever, and ours were just abysmal shape. The number was 166 million. Our electricity didn't function on some of them. The pads were too short for the campers. The voltage was too bad to put in. Things were cracked. The actual cabins were in disrepair. Whatever. I mean, it was all bad.
It was a long list.
So since those 3 years with the legislature, and I will admit I've been pushing hard for this, we put in about $66 million. We have new cabins over at Roosevelt, which is not far. I hope everybody here will ride over. You can get a 2-bedroom with a big screen TV and a fire pit out front and a whole lake. I think it's like $100 a night. So they're great facilities. We are about 50% finished. We finished one on the coast, the one in Natchez, Roosevelt, and one other one. We picked the top 5 ones to finish first. We're laying all new places to put your camper. We're changing the voltage. We had to rip out a lot of the electrical stuff. Just a whole completely different park system, and we have been emphasizing that, and I want to thank the Senate and the House for supporting that. Then we get some match money from Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, and so my goal is over the next 2 years we'll have a completely new set of parks, and so anybody that wants to go there will have a place that they can go that is inexpensive, relatively inexpensive, where you can take your family for the weekend or an overnight, have some time with your children, and you don't have to drive to Florida. You know, you're right here, you can drive right over here to Roosevelt. So I'm really hopeful that we'll have some state-of-the-art, we will have state-of-the-art facilities. This year we appropriate another $10 million from us, and there's some matching money, so I think probably 15 or 20 million will continue to go into these repairs and maintenance and stuff. So once that goes up, we've got a system now where you can register online to get your cabin, and just a lot of things, a lot of improvements, and I want to thank them for working so hard, but I thought it was really important. Our families need to have a place they can go, you're not more than an hour away from one wherever you are in Mississippi. So we want to have those, and that's a real success story, a real positive success story for us.
Absolutely. Well, another thing that we had talked about was some of the money that got put towards CPS this year, and why that's necessary.
Yeah, we on Child Protective Services, we were under a court order way long before Dean and I got here, and in those in there they required us to have so many kids per actual individual working with the children. So we were way over the number. It depends on what the child's going through and whatnot, but you shouldn't have more than about 15 or so that they're keeping up with. Now, these employees go out in the middle of the night. They go to places that would just make you cry to get these children. We average about 20 children a night in hotels around Mississippi that we have been given custody of by the court or something at any particular time, or the sheriff. So it was very difficult. So we have increased the compensation significantly for those people that are doing the Lord's work like that. And we're starting a process where we'll have a new facility here in Jackson that will take about 55 of these young women and men that have been maybe abused or need to get out of the home, and we'll have a safe place for them to go. We have accelerated the adoption process, where we had a lot of kids who were in the adoption program and wait years to get out. We've accelerated the adoption process. Some on notice, they'd notice to the parent to come, and the parent wouldn't show up. Of course, they didn't care about the kid anyway. So they'd just reschedule the hearing, and now, if they've given notice and don't show up, then their consent is given. So we've accelerated the process to get adoption, and we've made really good strides. The majority of these children that are being trafficked or whatnot are along the I-10 corridor. We have more in South Mississippi than others, but it is a statewide issue. And we've come a long way, but the stories would just break your heart. you know, about these young girls and young men and what they went through before we got them. And so we're doing a lot better than we ever were, but I think it's about 4,000 now, and so we're down a good bit from when we started all this effort, but still 4,000 kids, and those are the ones that we actually find out about. You know, there's others that we never make it to our doorstep. So very hopeful. We're doing a lot of progressive things. We're still under the court litigation, and we're hoping we'll do better. We're also under litigation in mental health, and we've done a lot better than that. We may get out from under the federal court order now for litigation on mental health. Really improved our mental health and our community mental health programs. So we're making progress. It's just very difficult if you do. I go over to Child Protective Services and walk around and talk to those people, and the stories are just heart-rending, man. It's just hard.
Absolutely. Yeah, as a reporter, I became familiar with some of those things you're talking about, and it's definitely somewhere that it's good to know that we're paying attention and stepping in. On another note, and I'm going to drag Senator Kirby into this because we've given him a pass this morning.
Well, I'm enjoying
He
it.
actually votes. I don't vote. Dean's president of the pro tem of the whole Senate,
right.
so he gets a vote.
That's right. So y'all did a lot for Rankin County this time. Obviously, there were some places that we needed it, but you really came through.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about Department of Public Safety and the new building later. We'll let the Lieutenant Governor talk about that and Capitol Police. But yes, we did. We gave money we were in Pearl, so we'll talk about Pearl for the widening and completion of the bridge at Pearson Road, which is wonderful because it goes over the railroad track and people aren't stranded there for 20 minutes waiting for a train to move, or I think 15 minutes is pretty much average, or was. And that's very nice, very nice. And of course, we're going to widen the road all the way to Richland. And actually, you'll be able to get on at Treetops eventually, off of Lakeland Drive, and go all the way to Richland. So it's really, really, really going to be nice. We gave money for that. Pearl is a city, and we want it to look like a city, and we want it to be a safe city, obviously. And we had street lights, as you know, from Pirates Cove to Airport Road that way, and now, which not only gives us an image of being a city when people come into the airport, because Airport Road also has the street lights, but as you come into Pearl, I think now with the, I think it was $1.5 million that we're going to give to finish the lights from Pirates Cove all the way to Pearson Road. Like I say, not only is it for image, but it's for safety. I can't tell you the times I've seen cars turn in at McLaurin Mart or over toward Kroger, and they'll turn into a ditch. It was dark. I hate to say that the main street of Pearl, which is Highway 80, I would think, and that and Pearson Road and Airport Road are the main streets, and they're just not lit, and we're very dangerous. And it's made a big difference, especially since we did Airport Road and Highway 80. We had accidents all the time. Since we put those lights in a few years ago, we don't have all those accidents. I mean, you're going to have accidents at every intersection, but we don't have accidents like we used to have. So I think that's going to hopefully save lives as well as project a better image for the city. When people fly into the airport and they come through Pearl going to the interstate, it used to be very dark, and now it's not. And it's really projected a better image for our city, for our county, and for our state as far as that goes. Wow, what else did we do? We did just so much. Let me think. There is another major project that we did.
Traffic signal on El Dorado Road.
El Dorado Road red light.
Yeah.
Good gracious. I mean, the day that we opened that, Lieutenant Governor and I were at the ribbon cutting.
Absolutely.
And that afternoon, I mean, we did it like in the afternoon. That afternoon, they had accidents, and some major accidents on that, where El Dorado Road on the new cut through on the East Rankin Metro Parkway, one of the accidents actually was a police officer. So, yeah, that red light will save lives and make a big difference. So we're real proud of those projects and appreciate the Lieutenant Governor helping us get those projects.
Absolutely. Well, so just touch on right quick, another thing y'all did that I'm very grateful for is you raised first responder life insurance for, you know,
We did.
police and fire that fall in the line of duty.
Yeah, I was out here at the airport when we had a mom, and she had one of her children had 2 children, and her husband had died. Yeah, that one was in a helicopter crash and was a member of the military. And I remember looking at that and asking what the military did and whatnot. And then I started looking back at what we did, and we lose like 1 or 2 pretty much every year. You know, they're either in drug-related matters or just in the line of duties sometimes. And I looked at it. We had like $100,000 life insurance. Well, I was thinking about that mom and a couple of kids. That's not going to go very far. You know, house mortgage is more than that. So we increased it to $150,000 for the individual and $25,000 for each child, up to $250,000. So now we have a program that, you know, if you had something happen to you and you had 2 children, you get $200,000. So we basically doubled the amount. It's still not sufficient, but they also get their retirement income, you know, as if they had retired and whatnot. There are other things that go with that, but we also put in a death benefit of $15,000 just to get funeral and everything else taken care of, an immediate thing. And then we increase the life insurance plus these other benefits that when you know, a young officer leaves a spouse with a couple of kids, we'd like for them not to have any emergency need for funds, and then hopefully a cash that will help them get started on their life again, and some ordinary income from their salary checks. It's I'm not satisfied that we're there yet, so we'll see. In today's world, inflation is eating so much. That's one of the reasons we've got to decrease the grocery tax. It's just, I go to the grocery store just like everybody else, and I'm like, it wasn't like this the last time. So that's one of the things I think we need to look at again.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you personally as a volunteer firefighter, but also I've lost several friends in the line of duty, several police officers that were my friends, and I've had to write their stories and that kind of thing. And so the fact that that was close to y'all's heart is important to me. All right, last question. What do you guys think, and you can collaborate on this if you want, what do you think was the biggest accomplishment this year during the...
Dean, you vote.
Wow. Well, of course, always the issues are public safety, and I think we did so much there with the Capitol Police that we were, if the Lieutenant Governor wants to speak on that.
Absolutely.
But the Capitol Police has really made a difference in our area. I get thank you calls all the time and texts from people in Jackson, especially thanking me for Capitol Police and the good job that they do. Sean Tyndall does an excellent job, I think, as commissioner. And when we moved Capitol Police away from Department of Finance Administration to Department of Public Safety under the Highway Patrol, it changed everything. It changed the attitude. It also changed the quality of, I think, of officers that we have. Some of them were actually Pearl policemen, I think, and Rankin County Sheriff's Department, Brandon Police, and now they're with Capitol Police. And we've upped that, you know, it seemed like years ago it was like 65. Now we have like, what, 187 going toward 200 Capitol policemen. It's made a significant difference in safety, and people are going to the Capitol building, and people are going to Jackson, going to the museums, wherever they're going to. I think that was a major accomplishment. Safety overall in this state is a major issue, and I think we've done a lot of good things, including, which I'll again let you talk about, our new building, which I think is unbelievable. Education, putting the additional funds that we did, making it so that teachers that have retired can come back. If they have 30 years service, they can come back in the critical areas where they're needed and not affect their retirement. I think that's a major issue as well. So And then in transportation, we've made, as we've talked about here, even statewide, we've made a huge difference in transportation, which helps not just in safety, but in our economy. So I think those are probably the top three things, in my opinion, safety and education, transportation. But we did so many good things this year, you know, as you're aware. We get criticized a lot, but not a lot of thank yous. I actually had a guy call me near the end of session that I hadn't talked to in probably 20 years, and he said, "I know you probably don't remember me,
But
and I thought, uh-oh,
here we go.
and I thought, what did we do that he doesn't like? And he said, "I just wanted to call you and tell you thank you for all that you and the legislature have done to help our state." So I said, "Well, thank you so much. I'm not used to getting these calls. What can I do for you?" Right?
Right.
He said, "I don't want anything. I just appreciate what you're doing." We don't get a lot of calls like that. Usually only angry people. And as the old saying, the press doesn't report the planes that land safely, only those that crash. And so you hear the negatives, but you don't hear the positives. And we have so many positives on so many issues, everything from human services to education to whatever each year. This year we really did a lot. I don't remember any year that we've touched every issue that could be touched pretty much we did this year. So I feel overall it was one of the better years for the state of Mississippi in history. Honestly, I think it was a great year. I think we had great leadership from the Lieutenant Governor and the Senate that helped us to pass those bills. I think a lot of them would have died had it not been for him. And we have some really good chairmen, which he chose. So.
Absolutely.
They get to do that. You know, there are a couple of things in there that I think bear note. During the last 3 years, we paid off, I think, $900 million in state debt.
That's a big thing.
And cut taxes, like the franchise tax and the income tax, which we'll cut again this year and then next year. So in the history of the state, we've never paid off debt and cut taxes. I mean, that's never done since 1817. So I think that means that we're not mortgaging your future. That's important to me, and so I think we did a really good job with that. And we helped the counties by reimbursing their homestead exemption. We gave raises to troopers. Our nursing school, we're building a new nursing school, and then we're building other nursing schools at community colleges to help us with our nursing shortage, which is about 3,000 nurses short. So you're seeing us doing a lot of things. Our teacher pay raise was $100 million, and you're seeing that when we go to 30th. People didn't think we could ever get to, like the 40th. That would have been a goal, but to get to 30th in the country is really superior for us. So I think you're seeing it. Like Dean says, we're touching so many things. In the last year, 2 years, we put $1 billion in roads and bridges in Mississippi, with a B. Mm-hmm. Now that's in addition to the normal 700 or 800 million they get anyway. They get a budget, I forget, about 1.5 to 1.6 billion anyway, and then we've increased that. And so you're seeing us address education, roads and bridges, safety. We gave trooper pay raise this year. We raised salaries at Child Protective Services and mental health. You're seeing us do all of the things I think that most everybody would like to see without a lot of issues. And I think it was brave by the House and the Senate to try to address PERS. That's an electric thing. But we can't just let it go away from us here. The boat's drifting away. We needed to come up with something. And so you're just seeing, I think, the legislature work. Now, the fact that we may not agree on one matter or another is the way that Thomas Jefferson and all of them set it up. We're supposed to have a balanced provision, and so you got the governor and us and the House. So all of those together, though, we made great strides. I think the governor may have vetoed out of 1,000 bills, maybe 4, something like that, 4 or 5. Not anything that we wanted to come back for. Mm-hmm. So I think generally we're working together as a group, and you'll see differences in opinion as you do in the city of Pearl or anywhere else. Ask the Board of Aldermen. But what you're seeing is monumental steps forward in education, healthcare, infrastructure, child protective services, just parks, just go down the line. All of these are positive. And we matched the cities for $450 million. We put $1 billion in water and sewer around Mississippi. Just a lot of real positive things. So I'm hopeful that we can continue to do like we've been doing.
Absolutely. Well, and I said that was my last question, but of course, we're itching to talk about, we had Sean Tyndall here a couple weeks ago, if not last week. But anyway, we got to touch on that crown jewel out there in Rankin County. We are building a new DPS building, and it's going to bring everybody under one roof.
It is.
Why is that important?
Well, we've had Homeland Security and MBI and all these other people, and we built the matching building to the crime lab across from it. So, and it's all in, and when I talked to Sean the other day, we were looking at probably March or April, a move-in date. I mean, we got the walls and everything else, they're working on the inside. So we should have everybody out here, and I hope that will make us more effective. We actually have added the MDOT security officers to Highway Patrol, to Public Safety. They've absorbed those, and it's going well. They check the agriculture and make sure you're not overweight with your truck, that kind of thing. That's under their purview now. So all of those are great strides, and they have a phenomenal building now. And so we think that helps both coordination, morale, getting two troopers, all that kind of stuff. So they'll all be here in April, and the old building needs to be torn down immediately, which we intend to do, and we'll see what we do with it after that. But I'm thinking that this coordination will be very important. As you know, they're not very far from MEMA and some other things. Seems like Rankin County's got a lot of really good stuff out here. The fire academy's next door, then MEMA, then you go down the street and you got the crime lab and now the highway patrol. So you built a whole center right just south of the airport.
That's great for Rankin County.
It is good. Y'all deserve that.
For the state.
Absolutely.
For the state of Mississippi, it's fantastic.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything either of you guys want to add that I wouldn't have known to ask you?
I will say this. We've had ARPA money, American Rescue Plan money, that we've allocated out. It has not been spent yet. So I really anticipate that we'll have another good year this year. Now, when that has flown through and you built all your water and sewer in Pearl and Brandon or wherever, when all that's flown through, we'll get back to more normal operations. But we had opportunities to, this is a Warren County term, to fritter some of that money away. We didn't fritter it. We ended up putting it in things that'll be here long after anybody that's elected down there will be here. So I'm real proud of the fact that we do that, and we'll see that with the decrease in taxes and franchise taxes, income taxes, and the building that we're going to do with our American Rescue Plan money and the city's money. Those will give us a very good next year, I think. And then probably 2 years out, we'll start getting into, I would say, a more normal flow. This next year, I've been a proponent for cutting the grocery tax. I think it'll get some legs this year, I'm hopeful. So we'll continue to cut taxes and build our stuff, build our infrastructure, and educate our children. That's what we need to be doing.
Sounds
You
good.
see orange barrels everywhere, all over the state.
Yeah, they complain about that.
Pardon our progress.
It makes a difference.
It does make a difference.
And I'm real excited about the things we've done, and I agree with the Lieutenant Governor that the things that needed done, we try to not wants but needs first.
Yeah.
And the ARPA money has gone to non-recurring expenses.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about the things that we were able to do and that we're still doing, and looking forward to the future.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you both for your hearts for Mississippi and for Rankin County and for all you do for us here in Pearl. Thank y'all for being with us today, and thank you for coming again.
I'm glad to be with you,
Yeah.
Teresa. I've got 8 grandchildren now.
Oh, wow.
So all my decisions are based on grandchildren.
On the future.
I was
Absolutely.
out in Rankin County at the baseball fields the other day with my 6-year-old. It was hot as blue blazes. And, every time there's just a dusty field out there. And I was thinking, this is America. You got these the bats are just about as big as the kids are. And they're out there playing and having, growing up in a place that we hope that they'll stay and come raise their family here.
Absolutely. I love that picture. And you're right, that is America.
It is.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate the time that y'all have spent today, and we thank you guys for watching, and we hope that you will tune in with us next week. But in the meantime, if you have any questions about anything we talked about today, go look it up online, or you can send it to us here at the City of Pearl on Facebook. I'm Teresa Apel, the Public Information Director. Have a great day.